Another great weekend of college football. We saw some great games, some close finishes, some upsets, some near upsets. It was just a big weekend in college football, and I think we've now seen some teams establish themselves as the front runners, and maybe in their conference or in the college football playoff. And then we have other areas where things are still wide open, and those are really my big takeaways. We're going to get into it, but keep this in mind. Just something. If you don't realize how fast this season goes by, next week, week 10. This upcoming Saturday is in November. We are going to be in November on Saturday. So it's going by quickly. All right, let's get into the takeaways. Number one, these teams are basically locks for the college football playoff. I know Ohio State didn't even play this week, but Ohio State and Indiana were pretty much already here. How about Indiana, though? Is this the best team in college football? We see them play a UCLA team that had really been giving some teams problems. They had won some games. Thought that maybe this was a trap game for Indiana or something. I didn't think that, but I think there was some thought out there that this could be at least a competitive game. Indiana just went out and destroyed them. I mean, we don't see many Power 4 teams just completely annihilating other Power 4 teams. It just doesn't happen a whole lot this year. Ohio State and Indiana, though, have been able to do that, and I think these are probably the two best teams in the country. Texas A&M with their win over LSU. This team, man, when they play like that, they're a team that I think could win a national championship. This team is loaded. The schedule the rest of the way sets up pretty well for them. I could see them tripping up and losing a game. Or, even if they lose 2 games, they've done enough. They're going to be in the playoff. So Texas A&M, go ahead and lock them in. Ole Miss has a really favorable schedule the rest of the way. Now, they don't have as much wiggle room because they can't lose 2 games like Texas A&M can. But, again, when you look at the schedule, it's hard to imagine them losing another game or losing more than 1 game. Maybe they lose 1 game. Maybe it's the Egg Bowl or maybe it's Florida or something like that. But this is a team that has been really good this year. You've got Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback, who no one had heard of, or I'd never heard of him before this season. Didn't even think he was going to be their starting quarterback. He is so good with his legs and just accuracy throwing the football. These receivers have stepped up. And the defense, you got to give them some credit. The defense has not been awful. It's not been great, but it's been good enough for them to win some close games and against some pretty good teams. So hats off to Ole Miss to get to this point. And I don't think they're, Lane in the past, Lane Kiffin has kind of choked down the stretch. I don't see that happening this year. The schedule. If they had lost this game, yeah, I think probably they do trip up and don't make the playoff. But after beating Oklahoma on the road, you feel like Ole Miss is in there. So you've got 4 teams now that are pretty much locks for the playoff. Now, I'm not going to put Alabama in this discussion just yet because they've got some tough games left, and they've already lost a game. So they could lose. I'm close to putting Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon in here, but those teams have enough tricky games left where we're not quite ready to lock them in just yet. Same thing for Notre Dame. I'm very close to locking them in, but they do have that game against Pittsburgh. I think that could be a challenge. So let's move on now to our next takeaway. As we'll kind of look at, as we get to this point in the season, we're looking at the standings when we do these takeaways. It gives you guys something to look at. Hopefully you enjoy that part of the graphic. But we talk about Houston and Vanderbilt. These teams are real playoff threats. We'll start with Houston. Houston only has 1 conference loss, and they have a very favorable schedule the rest of the way. In fact, they could be favored in the rest of their games. Cincinnati and BYU have tougher schedules. Texas Tech, they will play, I believe BYU and Texas Tech play not this week, but the next week. That's going to be a huge game. So those teams are going to kind of knock each other off. Cincinnati, I don't know that they stay undefeated. Houston could very well find themselves in the Big 12 championship game. And, of course, if they win it, they're going to be in the college football playoff. So we have to start paying attention to Houston. I'll tell you what, I did not see them going on the road and beating Arizona State. That one really shocked me. I thought Arizona State had kind of had it. I thought they had figured things out. I know there were some very questionable calls in that game. You had a point where the fans were throwing stuff on the field. But Arizona State, and they fought back and almost made a game of it at the end, but just couldn't quite do that. So Arizona State and Utah and Kansas State, TCU, these teams with 2 losses, I don't know that a 2-loss team gets in the Big 12 championship. It's possible, but you would need a lot of help. So, yeah, it feels like we're down to 4 teams in the Big 12, more than likely, and Houston, again, a real threat, and Vanderbilt is a real playoff threat. I don't think that they're a threat to win the SEC or get to the SEC championship because they do have to play Tennessee on the road. And then this game against Texas coming up. If they win that game, Vanderbilt is going to be in the college football playoff. And I think they're a better team than Texas. Texas continues to struggle. Arch Manning got banged up. I don't know if he'll play. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Texas at this point, although he did kind of come on late in that game and play pretty well. But Vanderbilt's a real threat, and I'll be honest, I've enjoyed the Vanderbilt story. I felt like, this is a great story for college football. It's really fun to see them win, but it's going to catch up. They're going to lose a couple more games down the stretch. I don't know if that's going to happen now. Now I'm starting to think Vanderbilt might actually be in the college football playoff. It all starts with this game against Texas on Saturday. If they win that game, I think you feel really good about Vandy getting into the college football playoff. All right, next we go to let's talk about the Big Ten for a little bit. Don't count out Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, and USC. These are all teams that could win out. I mean, they could. You look at their schedules, and there are some tough games. I believe Iowa plays USC and Oregon. I know they play Oregon. I can't remember the schedule off the top of my head. But you look at those teams, I don't think any of these teams can get to the Big Ten championship because I think Indiana and Ohio State are going to win out. Maybe one of them does, though. Maybe Michigan beats Ohio State, or maybe Indiana or Ohio State trip up somewhere. There is a path for USC and Michigan and Iowa. Maybe not Nebraska, but USC, Michigan, and Iowa because they only have one conference loss. And these teams are playing decent. Iowa at times look really good. Michigan, they seem close. They seem really close to putting it all together. Nebraska has looked good at times. USC, they've been kind of inconsistent, but they've shown potential. And teams get better as the season goes along. So if these teams can put it all together and finish strong, maybe not to the Big Ten championship, but a 10-2 Big Ten team, if it's any of these teams, I mean, they've got a really good. I mean, they're probably going to be in the college football playoff. A 10-2 Nebraska, a 10-2 USC, Michigan, or even Iowa with the schedules that they play in the Big Ten. I think you're probably going to be in. So we've kind of been talking about Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon. Those teams probably going to make the playoff. Don't really see another team out of the Big Ten. Now we're starting to see, one of these teams I think probably emerges and has a really good shot to finish 10-2 and get to the playoff. Who will it be? I don't know. Iowa's schedule is probably the toughest out of these teams, but Michigan does have to play Ohio State. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out. But the Big Ten, again, I think Indiana and Ohio State are on a collision course to the Big Ten championship. But the race for the college football playoff for Big Ten teams, I still think there are a lot of teams that have a really, really good shot. All right, number 4, the ACC is still wide open. This is going to be really, really fun down the stretch. Georgia Tech is 5-0. Virginia almost lost. And if Virginia had lost that game, then they'd be sitting there with one loss. Look at all these one-loss teams. Pittsburgh, Louisville, SMU after falling to Wake Forest. Upset there. Duke, and then, of course, Miami. I mean, obviously, Georgia Tech and Virginia have the inside track because they're undefeated, but the schedule for Virginia, I don't know if they can finish undefeated. Maybe they do. Maybe they surprise us. Georgia Tech, I think, has a really good shot. Actually, I think Georgia Tech probably going to be in the ACC championship, and it's going to come down to these other teams, and it's probably going to come down to tiebreakers. We could have a 3 or 4-way tie, and that's going to determine who gets in. Miami has to play SMU and Pittsburgh. SMU and Louisville play. I don't have this full schedule in front of me. I don't know if Duke and Virginia play. That would be an interesting one there. It's very, very interesting to see what's going to happen here in the ACC. But I think it's wide open. Even if Georgia Tech wins out, I think that the team that they play, that spot, it is wide open. So this is going to be a fun conference race for sure. And then finally, we go to the Group of 5. South Florida no longer the Group of 5 front runner in my opinion after losing to Memphis. So now the problem here for South Florida. One, they've got 2 losses. One of those is not a conference loss, so that I don't think that keeps them out. They went out and they get to the American Championship. They're going to be in the playoff. But you've got an undefeated Navy, an undefeated Tulane, and you've got a Memphis team with the same number of losses, and now they've got the tiebreaker. I think South Florida, it's looking like it's going to be tough for them to get there. I think it's probably going to be Navy, Tulane, or Memphis. And I think Tulane's the best team out of these. But yeah, I don't know. This is going to be really, really interesting to see. If it's not South Florida, who is it going to be? And I think it could be any of those teams. I haven't looked at Navy's schedule, but I believe that they've got some tougher games coming up. The schedule's been very easy so far. So that's interesting to see what happens here. You look at the Mountain West now. Boise State, the front runners there, they're undefeated in the conference. They've got 2 losses, 2 non-conference losses, but those are to good teams. Could Boise State maybe sneak in there with 2 losses, or San Diego State, or one of those teams out of the Mountain West? I don't know. This race is also getting very interesting as we head into the month of November. So what do you guys think about the group of 5? Who do you think, if it's not South Florida, who do you think is going to get in? I'd love to hear your take on that. But yeah, and just give me your takeaways overall. These are my takeaways, but I always like to hear what you guys have to say as we move on to the month of November, and we're in the double-digit weeks. Week 10 coming up this week.